everyone, Claire Rattée here, Conservative candidate for Skeena Bulkley Valley. I'm making another video today just as a follow-up to one that was posted yesterday on Michelle Rempel's Facebook. And for those of you that aren't already following her, Michelle Rempel is the MP for Calgary Nose Hill for the Conservative Party. And she's been a great mentor to me and has really helped me so far in this journey. And yesterday, her and I were in Smithers, British Columbia, and we made a short video just talking about one of the projects that has happened there about 3 years ago. So I would highly recommend that if you haven't watched it already, that you go and take a look at that one. But essentially it was just talking about a bylaw that has been put in place in Smithers that has just created a lot of really onerous red tape, bureaucratic red tape for small businesses, any kind of economic development in the region. And so the reason that this is relevant for me and in my campaign is because my chief opponent for the NDP is the mayor of Smithers, and so he is directly in control of the Sidewalk to Nowhere project. And since a lot of people were asking me for a bit more of a follow-up on that and to talk a little bit further about other issues that bylaw has caused the community, I figured I'd make another quick video today just to talk about that a little bit. And I think it's important because people need to realize that when you go with policies that are based on socialist principles, you end up with bureaucratic red tape, barriers for small businesses. These sorts of things are not well thought through in advance, and the proof of that comes out when you see things like the Sidewalk to Nowhere project, which that company had to pay $10,000 for. It made federal news because it is so ridiculous. So I'm just going to talk briefly about another project. This is much more recent. That sidewalk's been here for about 3 years now. This just happened in December, shortly after the Smithers Town Council they had their municipal election and they were sworn in, and the mayor was sworn in again. And it has to do with a CT scanner for their hospital. So for those of you that do live in northern British Columbia that are watching this, you probably already know that we struggle immensely with healthcare services here. We have a shortage of doctors in many of the communities. It's really difficult to get to medical services for most people that live in some of the outlying communities that don't have a hospital, or the hospitals near them are not fully equipped. So Smithers Hospital is an example of that. Many of the communities, from Burns Lake to Hazelton, all use that hospital regularly, and it doesn't have a CT scanner. So through some very generous donations, the majority of which was actually made up by a private citizen from Telqua, and so they raised about $1.75 million for this project, which is just amazing. I think it's really wonderful that especially with one private citizen contributing the majority of the money, but just in general, that the community was able to come together and raise this money for something that is really necessary for the region. So unfortunately, because the Northern Health had to do an extensive amount of renovations to make way for this machine, it was going to be about $350,000 to reno prior to installing the CT scanner. This bylaw, the one that requires, originally it was any kind of renovations to a building over $75,000, and because of the Sidewalk to Nowhere issue, they changed the bylaw and raised that threshold to $100,000. The hospital actually qualified that they would have to follow this bylaw and they would have to do investments in community infrastructure, which is just insanity in my opinion. A hospital should not be subject to this kind of a bylaw. This is a really important piece of infrastructure that is needed in the community. They're already investing in public infrastructure at that point. So they were required to do about $500,000, I believe, in upgrades to like sewer lines, things of that nature, sidewalks, which is just insanity. So they had representatives come before council and they were asking for a variance to waive the costs of these so that they could go forward with this project, because essentially it was a barrier to them being able to actually complete the project. They were very clear at this point it would at least greatly delay the project, if not remove all possibility of it actually being completed. So they came before council requesting for this variance. One of the councilors put forward a motion to approve the variance, and so mayor and council, 6 councilors, 1 mayor, voted 3-3, 3 of them in favor, 3 of them against. And the person that broke that tie is the mayor of Smithers, my chief opponent. And he said, nope, we're not granting you a variance. You should have to stick to the rules, knowing full well that this project may now not go forward. So to me, that's just lunacy. I don't understand how on earth someone can come to that conclusion. I don't understand how 4 of them thought that that was appropriate. They did subsequently put forward another motion to, I believe it was, reduce the amount of offsite works they were gonna have to do by down to 131,000. Knowing still that Northern Health had told them that this would still likely be a barrier to this project being completed. So that motion passed, and Northern Health came back and said, nope, doesn't look like we're going to be able to do it still. And they had a lot of community pressure put on them, saying that this is a project that is needed here. People were having to travel all the way to Terrace or to Prince George to be able to access a CT scanner. And that's just unacceptable. That's a really long distance for people to have to travel, especially people that are sick. So basically, after a whole bunch of pressure from the community, pressure from Northern Health, council decided to revisit the motion, and they ended up approving a variance to waive all of the offsite costs. So Smithers is getting a CT scanner, and that's great news. But I think that it's important that people understand that that could very well have gone a different way if the councilors and the mayor that originally opposed it had their way and they weren't subjected to public pressure. And it's important for politicians to have that public pressure put on them so that they understand what the parameters are, what people are looking for. But this was not an example of something that should have been this difficult to figure out. They shouldn't have had to go back. This is something that should have been pretty clear to people right from the beginning. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because I think it's important for people in my riding to know that when you're looking towards the NDP as a viable option for representing our riding federally, somebody that supports that kind of policy does not understand what our communities are looking for. In a situation like that, community interest needs to be put first. And when you have the possibility to greatly improve healthcare in your region and to provide better services with your healthcare, that needs to be a priority. The irony with policies like this that aren't well thought through are that they come from a place where the politicians putting them in place believe that they're doing something to better the community. They think that this is a way that they can use the economic growth within the community to subsequently benefit the community through other infrastructure projects. But that actually just creates not only more of a barrier for anyone that is considering developing a business in the area, it goes a bit further than that, because when a situation like this arises, it's becoming more detrimental to the community at large. And it's always funny to me that when the left brings forward a policy like this, thinking that they're going to, stick it to the business owner to create more community infrastructure, they end up in situations like this where they actually go against things that they claim to be in favor of, which would be things like improving healthcare. So I think it's just a funny parallel. Obviously, there are more stories like this in the area, more situations. It's not just the sidewalk to nowhere and the CT scanner, but I'll leave those for another video. I also just wanted to say thank you so much to everybody that has been so supportive, especially after the video that we put out yesterday. There aren't any words to describe how much it means to me. I've received so many kind messages. This has just been such an amazing experience so far. I am so grateful. And I have really enjoyed being able to go out to these community events and go door knocking and meet with the constituents and hear these stories and know what it is that you guys are looking for in federal representation. And I promise I am willing to fight. I am ready. I have put my all into this, and I will continue to do so for the next 2 months. You have my word. Thank you so much for watching this video, and please, like I said before, feel free to share it around, send it to family and friends. Look forward to talking to you guys soon. Thanks.